Welcome back to the Pop Marketing Podcast, the place where we explore the relationships between popular culture and brand marketing by talking with the thinkers, makers, dreamers, and doers on the front lines of both. Inspiring marketing ideas that stand out, empowering marketers to create better partnerships within popular culture, or just learning more about what makes popular culture, fandoms, and those internet memes so damn sticky are all the things we shoot for here. Today, I am chatting with Brendan Gahan, partner and global chief social officer for Mekanism. Not only a cool name, but Mekanism is an agency that helps brands, you might have heard of, like Peloton, Uber, Coke, Method, Ben & Jerry's, HBO, Amazon, and my personal fave, Franzia. Yep, that's where they help them keep up with the speed of culture. Gahan has been at the forefront of the social and influencer marketing space since 2006, creating campaigns for brands like Mountain Dew, Unilever, Miller Coors, and even the Olympics. Okay, here's the thing. If you haven't realized it yet, influencers, creators, YouTubers, or whatever the hell you want to call them, whether it's Logan Paul and that Mayweather fight, what's going on there, Mr. Beast launching a 300-unit burger chain this year, or TikTok's own Charli D'Amelio working with Dunkin' Donuts to create her own drink, the strange and wonderful world of influencer audiences creating and working in a partnership with brands, it's only going to get bigger in 2021, yet marketers are for the most part baffled on what the hell it's actually all about. It's totally cool. That's exactly why I brought and invited Brendan to help enlighten us all on the subject. You see, Brendan is an influencer marketer OG and has been yucking it up with the who's who in the influencer world since like 2006. It's a long time ago. Building hundreds of partnerships between influencers and brands, and has seen this thing go from subculture to mainstream all the way from the ground level. He deeply understands the platforms and influencer creator space as well as the business of brand marketing, and I know you're going to dig this chat. Brendan and I talk about how he ended up back at Mekanism. We talk VidCon, working with influencers in the early day, the explosion of live streaming in 2020, and the TikTok effect. I just added the effect after TikTok because it sounded cool. But we do talk about TikTok and his channel. Now let's stop yapping about him and start talking with the influencer whisperer himself. Everybody, Brendan Gahan on the Pop Marketing Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Pop Marketing Podcast. I'm Joe Cox, the Pop Marketer, and today I have a very special guest. I'd like everybody to welcome Brendan Gahan. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Pumped to be here.
Yeah, I think we met, and it's a funny story because right after I saw you, I was like, oh my God, that's the guy my buddy sent me a link to your TikTok. But I met you at Social Media Strategy Summit, and it was a virtual Social Media Strategy Summit where you were there talking kind of specifically about streaming and brands engaging in these channels that are giant in popular culture, but yet in kind of unexplored territory for those inside brand marketing. And we had a great chat, and I was super interested in hearing more. But then I realized that my buddy at Snapchat had just sent me over a link and said, hey, look, this guy's doing marketing content on TikTok. I told you. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's such a small world. That's hilarious.
It's a small, weird world, but it's great. And I will definitely get into that. I want to talk specifically about your TikTok because I think it does a couple things to prove that TikTok might not be, when you deal with that much of an audience, it might not be the 13-year-old playground. I mean, it is, but it might have more opportunities than we might be looking at it for.
100%. Whenever you want to dive into that, I'll follow your lead.
We'll get there. But first I want to make sure everybody kind of understands your background and where you come from and what you do. And right now, at Mekanism, both a partner and chief social officer for Mekanism, which is an agency that does killer work, by the way. And I'm always watching what's coming out from you guys. But like, how did you get there? I mean, I know some of the story from LinkedIn. It's good, but I would love to hear your take.
Yeah, for sure. So, I graduated college in 2005. It was that era where social media was just starting to become a thing, basically. It was MySpace, and then, I had to use my university email address to get my Facebook account. I think YouTube was launched in 2005. It was very, very early days. And so in my internship, I got an internship at a boutique ad agency in San Francisco. They, inevitably people sort of were like asking me, what do you do on these platforms, that sort of thing. And over time, I just sort of started pitching various ideas. I was a junior account exec business, pitching any ideas, but I did it.
My favorite.
Yeah. And we sold one through. We sold through this influencer activation with these YouTubers, Smosh, who they're still massive today. And so this client, kudos to them. They're like, yeah, sure, let's give this a whirl. And we partnered with Smosh. They did this, relatively simple brand integration. It crashed the client's website. It got millions of views, and I sort of I knew, I was very confident that this was the direction things are headed and the direction I wanted to take my career. But that really was sort of the nail in the coffin. And I was like, okay, this is what I need to focus on. And I remember too, at that time, finding out basically how much people pay for billboards and stuff, and just being blown away. I was a broke college kid, So sort of seeing the impact this had, I parlayed that, more or less, that case study into a job at Mekanism, which I'm back at in a roundabout way, which I'll get to. And we did a lot of really early sort of branded content, viral video, influencer marketing campaigns. We did a ton of them. And so pretty much from 2000, I think I joined Mekanism in 2007, 2007 to 2013, influencer marketing was not that popular. A lot of people didn't understand it. And I got to do, literally thousands of influencer campaigns and built up a lot of relationships. And it was a lot of fun. After I think 6 years at Mekanism, I left and I joined a YouTube MCN called Fullscreen. I was there for about a year, and then I left and basically started my own. I thought I was just going to consult, but I got a bunch of business, and soon I had to hire people, and I was basically just focused on influencer marketing and YouTube content strategy and channel strategy for brands. And that went really well. And I sort of had this moment, I don't know, maybe a year and a half in, where I was burnt out. But we had all these clients. It was 4 or 5 of us. It was very small. But we had, Mountain Dew, Pepsi, ABI, big brands as clients. And I sort of felt like, oh, I've got a hot hand. I'm going to play it. I'm exhausted. And so I hired some lawyers to sort of help me find a buyer. And I wanted to sell it. And they helped me out. And the whole time, I was so good friends with the folks at Mekanism. And I was, talking to Jason Harris, the president and CEO, getting his advice throughout the process. And at the 11th hour, he's like, don't do that deal. Why don't you come back? And so we worked it out. And I had literally signed a letter of intent with another organization and have been back in the Mekanism org for about 5.5 years. And within Mekanism, we're a full service creative agency, and on the social side, we're full service as far as social goes. We do everything from community management to the influencer marketing, content creation, analytics, reporting, various partnerships, and that sort of thing. So we sort of broaden back out, but it was a very, very odd path.
I think for anyone in social, that's where we are, that's been into it for a long time, it's going to be an odd path. But you've been at it it's crazy to start saying numbers like, hey, 2008, 2009 to 2013, they were a sweet time. I mean, it was Wild West, right? And I feel like I had a lot of fun there too, right? Because I feel like a lot of big stuff it always happens behind the back where nobody's looking, right? And that's where kind of that innovation goes. You might have the money to be able to do some things, and to you, it's a lot. To those brands, they're like, do you know what we spend on a TV spot? Like, here, this is fun money. But that was fun. And we were doing everything to like be heard. To get into the room, right? To have social and influencers and all this stuff that we knew were awesome kind of be in the forefront. But now we got it. And it seems to be like now that's the center of the room, right? Like that's where that energy is. I'm curious do you feel that too? And is it kind of like that be careful what you wish for type of thing where now you have a lot of, it's tougher in some parts because now all that Eye of Mordor is kind of like on social and those places.
Yeah, I think there is an element of that, sort of like the the hipster who hates a band once everybody else finds out about it. It was funny because for years, selling through influencer marketing, you're like, nobody gets it. Why doesn't everybody get it? And then now people get it, and you're kind of like, why do so many people want to get in on this? But so from that standpoint, I think it's interesting. I think probably the thing I miss most, and this isn't directly tied to sort of like the amount of attention it's getting, but well, maybe it is. I miss the sense of community in those early days, and I felt like I knew, I didn't know everybody, but knew a lot more of the players, and I knew them personally, and really felt dialed into the community. But now it's so massive. There's so many big influencers, so many big talent agencies, so many events and partnerships and activations happening. It's and so many more platforms. It's hard to keep up. And I think I get a little nostalgic for sort of that early sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, you just got to find where else it's happening next, right? And kind of put some time and effort into that next spot sometimes. So, and the reason I have you on is because specifically, we're not always talking about the influencer side of things. That's not this podcast. It's more about that intersection of like brand and popular culture. But if you look into the 2020, it's been like seismic shift, right? And I think that there was a lot of brands playing around with influencer and gaming and streaming and everything. But now we have Floyd Mayweather taking on a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Kid you not, that is a headline that has not only is it being talked about, but I feel like it's happening.
I think it's official as of last night, which is wild.
It's bonkers, but it kind of tells you that kind of world we're in, of why I wanted to have more of a discussion with you to kind of understand maybe a little bit of how we got there. So I like that theme of talking about where it was in that place of community and kind of that group. And it instills in me like those, in Hollywood, the little houses that would just be a bunch of poor influencer kids, like, doing 6-second videos. And what that now has turned into with TikTok and everything that's going on. I am curious. So you've been on VidCon's board for like 6 years. Is that right?
I think so, around then. And I've been to all the US VidCons and a handful of the international ones.
That's where I think people don't understand unless they've experienced it. Unless you've experienced a VidCon and there's a line wrapped around for the building for someone you've never seen before. And that's where I try to talk to clients a lot to say, just because you don't know who they are, that's something that the idea of celebrity is different than it was. So what was your experience like first time going there?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Well, it was in LA at this hotel across from the CAA building, and it was much smaller. I feel like it might have been like 600 people, 1,000 people, something like that.
Crazy.
And it was awesome. I remember, like everybody would. There was a bar sort of like in the back of the hotel. And, it was like the one sort of respite for the creators to sort of go and hide away from the fans. And so you just hang out there, all day and into the evening, and hanging out with, some of these insanely massive creators. And it was awesome. It was really tight knit community. Like you said, somebody can be famous, but not famous to you. And I think that's sort of the beauty of this community in a lot of ways, and the beauty of working with influencers. It's like, you don't necessarily need to know them or how famous they are, but recognize that they've got an audience. And yeah, I don't know. The early days, it was trying to think if there was anything else that was particularly noteworthy. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun. People weren't, there wasn't a lot of money. I remember the very first VidCon, I don't think there were any sponsors. And you look at it now, and it's one of the biggest, events of the year, and brands are spending millions to be associated with it. So it's a fascinating evolution.
Yeah, and talking about evolution on that too. I think it makes a lot of sense to understand the position of the creator themselves, right? Like what kind of shifts has happened with the creator and what they're up to. When you're talking VidCon, I'm assuming it was YouTube, like when you first.
Yeah, very much so. It was all YouTube. And I would say YouTube is still very much the core of it, but yeah, it's much broader now. Vine had its moment. The last VidCon in person, what was that, 2019? The TikTokers were taking over. I mean, it had a massive presence, and podcasts are a much bigger role. So it's very diverse from a platform and participation standpoint.
And do they all live there? So VidCon has taken in kind of like it kind of reminds me of how comic book conventions have taken on a pop culture convention, right? Like if you're into pop culture in any way, that's your home. Like that's the place to go, which is epically huge. Like it spans from professional wrestling to old cartoon voice stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And comic books kind of thrown in there. Does VidCon still hold that connection between that entire world?
I would say so. There are other events out there, but VidCon is the one, and I think really covers and incorporates every sort of creator out there, and really any creator who is relevant wants to be there and have a presence there. It's pretty wild. It becomes the epicenter for anybody essentially remotely interested in this space.
Did you ever think it helped to bring clients there? Did you bring clients there so they could experience it?
Yeah, a handful of times. And it's interesting. Yeah, like you said, you have to sort of see it to experience it. It seems like so many times I've been there with people and it's their first time and they're like it clicks. They're like, oh my gosh. It's like each one of these creators is Justin Bieber to all these fans. Like, just kids screaming through the halls, following creators. It's impressive. And I think you can look at sort of the viewership numbers on a video, but it's very different to sort of see thousands of people screaming in real life. That's, I think, really important or it seems to be very important for it to sort of sink in for people.
I'm trying to think if we jump into TikTok, but I think it's a really good time to kind of discuss what you had discussed at Social Media Strategy Summit, which is it's gone from recorded video and recorded things to a live stream, right? And though you may not have been familiar with live stream before 2020, my guess is that with all the live music performances and everything, when people have kind of been stuck at home, that even from pop culture, even to say it could be mainstream, it's, well, live streaming has had a humongous surge, but it is a lot to wrap your arms around as a marketer or somebody that is trying to kind of navigate a brand through that. What do you feel is, maybe break down a little bit of where that all came from? If you're just getting into streaming now, like, where did that kind of energy come from before, and walk us through a little bit of the history of kind of where we are now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think, where live streaming really got traction initially was through gaming, and that was sort of the tip of the spear. Twitch, everybody sort of knows that platform. And for years, gaming was at the core of it, and it really still is at the core of it. And it made a lot of sense, I think, as you're trying to develop a platform, to really focus on that community, because, people are ravenous for that content. It's long form that people will sit and watch. So it was very easy to sort of get gamers on board. They're more technology adept, etc. But now it's really grown a lot, and it's expanded a lot. I mean, on Twitch, I'm pretty sure now just chatting is the second largest topic and category on the channel. I mean, chess is blown up as a big one. Really, everything under the sun is there now, and it's exploded in popularity. I mean, I've got some stats in front of me. I think it was in May. Twitch was up 79%. Facebook Live and Instagram Live were up 50%. YouTube Live was up over 90%. I would imagine all those have sort of continued to grow since then. And sort of a level of adoption that's occurring that has been really accelerated. I think Twitch hit their 2023 benchmark goals this year. And it makes a lot of sense. You go from text to image to video to live. I would say live is sort of has very real traction now. And I think you see how important it's going to be based off of a lot of the moves the platforms are making. So Facebook and Instagram, for example, rolled out shops for live. So that social commerce component is going to be really critical. It's obviously something they're investing a lot of money in. They're signing a lot of creators. YouTube has been signing a lot of creators. And then Amazon, you look at the homepage now, they sort of quietly launched it, but live streaming is on the platform, and their affiliate partners can go up and start live streaming and sell products and generate affiliate fees. So I think that live streaming social commerce is going to be massive. And a lot of people, and myself included, would point to China as a proof point for this. In China, this shoppertainment, for lack of a better term, this kind of QVC meets influencers is massive. It's going to generate $136 billion in revenue this year alone. And some of these, the top creators are getting like 40 million concurrent views for, essentially, like I said, QVC meets, influencer marketing. And because social commerce and sort of commerce and digital commerce in general is a bit more developed over there. I think a lot of people assume that it's natural. It's going to that it's a bit of a leading indicator of what we can expect here, and I agree.
So in Asia, we've always known that the the second screen was the first screen early, right? We've known that. So that makes a ton of sense. So what you're saying is really we are still able to glean a lot of future telling of those platforms a bit from what's been going on over there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look at too the most popular platform this year. It's TikTok, but that came from China. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they've really invested in tech, and they've got a much larger sort of sample size to be working off of, and as a result, if something can make it there, odds are there's something to it. I imagine not everything will necessarily translate culturally, but I would think most of it would.
Yeah, I've spent way too much time over the last week in a rabbit hole of VTubers and virtual and utilizing puppet anime VTube. And it's giant. It's giant. It's absolutely giant. Again, it's like it's hard for our brains to comprehend sizes, right? And there's a lot of people in this world. So there is something can be really big and you have no clue. And that's maybe my favorite thing is finding those things and then, bringing them up to where they can be used and abused by brands to move towards mainstream, right? Like that's kind of that's the game.
Yeah.
For brands. So I feel like we've been knocking on the bell for a while now and saying just by the sheer numbers. You brought up Discord, I believe, which no one's looking at, or I don't even know if they understand how to monetize it yet. Also Twitch, which owned by Amazon. It's been tough other than kind of sponsorship and stuff of brands really being able to get into that world, right? Like I think we're kind of tip of the iceberg. And from your viewpoint, would you agree? Like we have kind of just been playing around with that. Why do you think it's been kind of tough transition for brands and even large ones to kind of get into that or go all out into that world?
Yeah, I think there's an element of cognitive dissonance. I think like using YouTubers and influencers is sort of a case study of this. There were influencers, like I did my first influencer brand deal in 2006. Those guys, Smosh, it was, I don't know, 3-4 million views, whatever it was on that video. So they had that audience. That audience was not, it was there. It wasn't until after the YouTube launched Google Preferred and they started putting YouTubers on billboards that influencer marketing really got its sort of big push into more mainstream advertising. And that was like 2013, 2014. Now that's a lag of 7-8 years. And I would say, even the brands doing it then, most were not investing much in them in influencer marketing. So this sense that I think we oftentimes in advertising like to think of ourselves as early adopters, but it's very easy for us to get sort of caught up in our old ways of doing things, the traditional ways of doing things, and become very risk averse. I mean, look at how much is still spent on, billboards and out of home and, TV. I'm not saying that there's not a place for that, but I think that there are much bigger opportunities that are sort of hiding in plain sight. And it's tough to pinpoint exactly why we don't adapt quicker, but I have a feeling a lot of it has to do with the fact that until we can sort of experience it for ourselves, it doesn't quite click. Just like the VidCon thing, it's like until you are, you're a CMO and your kid is on Discord, you're probably not even aware of it or recognizing the impact it's having on people. So I think that's a big part of it.
It seems that It's not hard anymore to get the budget for Facebook, right? It's not tough if it's in a media buy or if it's in a way
Yeah.
that speaks to the language of what we did. And Facebook did an incredibly amazing job of not only being able to target the right person in place, some privacy issues at bay, but there's no better place to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they turned it into the media of old, right? Like they did a good job of transitioning that and to say, no, same thing. Pay us money, we give you those same things. Now it's another, because I've been there. It's another thing to bring a client into a place that's new. Into a place that has a ton of opportunity to get those really big dividends, or like those multiplier effect. And you've talked about it a lot at Social Media Strategy Summit, to say, hey, you don't want to be the brand, or the real opportunity is to get in early,
100%.
whenever things are building, because you're going to get more back from it as you go.
Yeah. Those emerging platforms drive a disproportionate amount of value for sure. I know in that talk, I was referencing some stats around YouTube and Facebook, and it was like in 2006, the median views per video was over 10,000. A decade later, in 2016, it was 89. So that's a multiple of 100 plus. And Facebook, organic reach in 2012 was 16%. Now, I mean,
it might as well not exist.
Yeah, it's insane. And so being early, you get those multiples that just don't exist later on. And there are these opportunities look around right now. There's tons of them. Text versus email. Look at email open rates. The average open rate is what? You're lucky if you get 20%. Text, it's 98%. TikTok, I saw some stats the other day. Organic reach for brands, average organic reach for brands is 118%. Now, that means you're reaching on average more than your existing audience. With Facebook and Instagram, it's like you're paying just to even reach a portion of your audience. It's insane. And so there's so many opportunities, and I think it's really critical for brands to sort of break out of the tried and true. I mean, everybody sort of there's that quote, nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM, but it's like you also don't get promoted. Like it's like Facebook is the equivalent of that now. It's the standard. It's not anything innovative. So yeah, that's my rant on that topic.
No, it's exactly right on, and that's why I was like, "Oh God, we got to talk further on this," because it's really it. The idea I don't hear out there nearly enough, and that is the benefit of early adoption. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about doing something to get. There's PR involved for some brands too, right? And I held on to that for a while too, to say, "Hey, second doesn't get a headline, right? Like second to do something doesn't get a headline, but." Well, I'm beyond that now, is to say, well, second definitely could have a great TikTok experience, right? Based on the amount of resources that are going into it. And I got my own thoughts, but I'm going to ask it because it needs to be said, like, why are brands so why is it so rough for them to, because out of one side of the mouth, I always hear in certain rooms, we want to be different. We want to make these things happen. We want to like dent culture, right? Like we want to go after that. But then on the other side of it, it sometimes can be harder to sell in those kinds of ideas. What's holding brands back, both bigger and, smaller?
Yeah. I mean, when you're a big brand, things get standardized and there's bureaucracy and, I won't name names, but I know, like on the media side with a lot of brands we work with, they sort of have these benchmark, CPMs we have to be hitting on things. And so there are these guardrails in place, which make sense for sort of the established processes and mediums. But when something new comes out and doesn't fit nicely into these existing processes, it takes a long time to sort of navigate your way through them. So I think that plus the bureaucracy, and I'd also say an element of it is sort of cultural, in the sense that, I think in advertising we do like to say we want to dent culture, but I think there's, and I'm speaking very generally here. I think in general there's a lack of understanding of what is driving culture these days, and it's not a beautiful 60-second TV spot unless you're Nike, some of the biggest athletes on the planet. It's not likely to be happening there. Instead, rather than that top down approach, it's bottom up. A lot of the trends, we talk about or appear on the news. It was a topic of conversation on Reddit a week ago.
Yep.
And it's those niche communities that sort of ideas are refined. And I think most brands and agencies maybe could benefit from broadening their horizons and sort of the social platforms that they're on and the media that they consume.
If they're consumer centric, I mean, if that's what the thing that they want, I mean, I hear it a lot, but I love it. I mean, I say it too much already, but it's top down to bottom up. I learned it at Red Bull, right? Like we never had any good ideas.
Yeah.
Those ideas all came from the athletes, right? Like the crazy stunts and the none of it came from me. It was always, now we had the money and the ability to make it come to life with that person's help. But it was always the influencer. It was always hey, let's sit down over a couple drinks and you tell me the craziest thing you've always wanted to do, but just never understood how to do.
Yeah.
So and the internet just took that times 1 billion, right? Like that the answer may be down there. And you can pull it from that instead of trying to like push a message or a thing down in tradition.
Yeah, completely. And I love that Red Bull reference, because I think that's spot on. It's sort of like pouring gasoline on the fire of like what people are already passionate about versus trying to sort of pull it up out of thin
Throw
air.
a dart, right? Throw a dart.
Yeah.
I would way rather have something that I have some evidence that the community already likes. And look at how many times a really cool idea has happened, but the community spits it back out because you didn't think of one thing, that could have easily been kind of remedied if you would have brought the community in, first.
100%. Yeah.
So I wanted to jump to, I want to be cognizant of time. I think it's a good time for TikTok. And like I'd said when we first started talking, I had gotten a link to your TikTok because I was in a conversation with one of my friends that's over at Snapchat. And he was like, hey, you should be on here doing marketing content. I think it would go. And I'm like, it's tough. Making content, it takes a lot of time. And you got the podcast and this. And I was like, I don't know if it's the place for that. I'm not I can't, dance anymore. It's just the back's getting old. And he, like the first, 10 minutes later, he sent me your link of saying like, this is right on. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So from that, and then I saw you at Social Media Strategy Summit, and it was, you had content coming out and everything, but I'm telling you, like, what has it been, like a month since I'd seen you talk, and it's starting to really kind of pick up pretty quickly there. I wanted you to talk a little bit about why did you jump on your own channel on TikTok, and then kind of what's your experience there?
Yeah, for sure. The why is a number of factors. So we did some really early TikTok branded hashtag challenges and influencer activations. And so I saw firsthand, like, I don't want to say it's easy, but like you can pop off there in a way that has not been possible on, the more established platforms for a long, long time. So that was a factor. My fiance started a TikTok and, got a lot of traction. And then, this year in general, I think I was sort of making it a goal to just write more and participate more. And, I've always been one to sort of like really believe in the recommendations that I've made to clients and feel very strongly about things. But, there's so many factors that go into an idea being sold through. And I wanted something that I could kind of control to a certain extent and prove to myself like the ideas that I've got and kind of this overarching strategy can be implemented, and that I can find an audience.
It's proof, not only to yourself, but also, yeah, it's great.
100%. Yeah. And like, I just started doing it, and my first TikToks were awful. I think I've privated the very early ones that are really bad.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, and they're always going to be. And it's great, kind of. I've found it to be great to take the pressures of client work sometimes off of the content, because it kind of you actually get to play around a bit, right? Like, and
Yeah.
to give yourself okay to be crappy.
Yeah. And like, there's this saying that a bunch of top YouTubers say, or I've heard of several say, it's like, you've got to make 100 bad videos to get to one good one.
Yeah.
You know, your first good one. And so I kind of went in with that mentality. I was like, I'm just going to go, and it's okay that the first ones are awful. Like, I almost pictured it or thought of it as like, I'm building up a habit. I'm building up this muscle, and it's okay if the first ones are bad. They have to be bad. That's part of the process. And it's been a lot of fun. You know, I think I've been on it for 4 months now. The first 2 months were very slow. I think at the end of 2 months, I had, 1,500, 2,000 followers. And then it just started to click, and that's where I think kind of focusing on consistency and aiming to get those 100 bad videos and just making small tweaks each step. That's where you sort of, your success compounds, and it's very small at first. And then it just gets better and better, and there's more and more momentum, and then it kind of gets this hockey stick growth. And not to say that I've got this massive TikTok channel. I don't. I think it's 37,000 today. But, 20,000, 15, 20,000 of those have been, in the last month. So it's like,
I mean, that's hockey sticks. I mean, that's exactly it, right? And for nerdy marketing talk, like, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's it's niche, and so that's pretty, kind of says a lot to say this is not maybe what you think it is, right? Like, TikTok might not be what you think it is.
100%. And I saw some stats. There's apparently 100 million TikTok users in the US. I saw some data from a third-party app analytics company that estimated 67.5% of TikTok users in the US are ages 20 or older, and 20% are ages 40 or older. And, you spend more than 5 minutes in the app poking around, you'll very quickly find that really every community you could possibly imagine has some significant representation there. I do nerdy sort of marketing, social media content, and I've met a lot of really smart marketers, a handful of agency people. I actually just met a CMO of a pretty large company who's been messing around with it, and it's fun because it's still, it's new, but there's a lot of people trying to figure it out, and so there's still this sense of sort of camaraderie and community.
Yeah, and a sense of play too, right? Like, it's okay, we're all learning together, right? Like, we're all, teach me what you know. Oh, I tried this and it's done well, and nobody kind of has that best practices bug going, which is always fun. But I would rather not have the follow the leader type of push whenever possible. So also, I've seen that you've kind of went from my favorite is that you use it so well, the iPhone, like the wired iPhone. That's like, to me, the TikTok, like, it's for TikTok when you got that wired mic in. So it was small, but it's a detail I did not miss, and it's great. But I've seen that you started adding some graphics and stuff like to it to build onto it. Are you starting to get an idea of this kind of works more, this doesn't, and is it coming? I mean, I know it's going to be specifically for your content and who's bringing on, but are you starting to get a rhythm of like, here's where I should put a little bit more time and effort?
Yeah, and I've got a basic structure. I feel like I've sort of unlocked one level, and I'm like trying to figure out what the next level is.
Yeah.
It's like my production in the early ones was really bad, so like kind of just adding in ring light, using the mic, filming in a different room, getting like the lights you can see behind me right now, like colorful lights behind me. That was one thing that really helped. The other was sort of just the structure. And I still am trying to figure out the sort of storytelling aspect of things. But, the hook is so important. Like, how are you going to grab people's attention? And my very early TikToks, it was like almost me just sort of spouting off like facts and definitions. Like, it was just so boring. And it's like, obviously it's bad. Like, I mean, I even knew it, but like, you kind of have to work through the process yourself. And now it's like, I'll use, just borrowed interest. What's hot right now? What's a topic everybody knows about? What's a personality everybody knows about? And use that as sort of like an entry point to then bring to life the point that I want to communicate. So that hook, that borrowed interest, that slightly better production quality. I'm really trying and edit so that there's no extra sort of extraneous lines, no ums and ahs, and keep it really tight. And that's sort of where I'm at right now. And I'm trying to sort of figure out the next piece, which I think is maybe trying to strike a little bit more of an emotional chord. I think that's a little bit uncharacteristic for me. So I'm sort of struggling with that, but that's the piece I'm kind of trying to play with a little bit next.
Cool. Well, I will be following along. So it's been fun so far. What is your name on there so others can join along?
So it's my name at Brendan Gahan, BrendanGahan.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time. I did have one more question, and of course I save it to where we don't have much more time, but and it's kind of a big one. But where should brands? It's a tough problem, and you know it from the agency side. Here's the tough problem: consistency. Agreed. Doing your thing from the beginning and having this long-term idea, which you probably know where I'm getting to, is it. It's the secret. It's the secret sauce. Yet, it's really hard to do for a brand that works inside campaigns, has turnover, agency gets switched out every couple of years. It's really hard to think in that long term, which we know from this is the really, it's like, hey, you start out and you keep on going and it gets bigger. What is a brand to do? How do they get this mentality to this more longer term play? How do they even begin, to overcome that?
I mean, to be honest, this is a challenge. Like, you hit the nail on the head. I think this is like one of the biggest challenges for brands and ad agencies to sort of wrap their heads around, is sort of that, what's your it's like, how can you do continuous programming and community development versus approaching everything through the lens of campaign. And I definitely do not have the sort of silver bullet answer, but I would say one thing we've been trying a lot more of, and we seem to be getting traction around with, is like we're working with this brand on helping them with their YouTube content strategy. And we've really been pointing out, I mean, we've been working with them off and on for 2 or 3 years now. And we've been talking about the importance of episodic series content. And they are really sort of coming around to it now. And I think the thing that we really continuously sort of point to as a proof point is the creators, and then on top of that, we in our own work are like, we've done a few projects with them where we're like, but we're not going to do like one big video. We're going to do 3, 4, 5, something like that. And more if we can, but that's generally what's kind of been getting approved.
Right.
And those perform really well. And so I would say maybe depending on the client, if you can sort of sell through, almost like position it as like rather than selling through like a pilot, sell through a pilot season, like you need 5, 6. I mean, you need, like for YouTube, for example, you need at least 10 videos to work out the kinks. That would be my one piece of advice. But if anybody else has a better answer, I would love to hear it, because it's a struggle.
Yeah, and that's why I ask. Because it is hard, and it is really tough to make that switch. And I don't know the answer either, but I love a few things from our chat. One is bottom up, right? Like that's if you can start to listen more and get a bottom up approach instead of starting to try to invent everything out of nowhere, magical stuff. That's the way to go. And then what you just said is like, think of it as seasons. I mean, that clicks in the pop culture world for me. It's like borrow it from TV. It's like sell in a season instead of selling in like what you said, like just the one little tiny thing.
Yeah, and like it's hard, like it's not how most brands' budgets work. It's not how most marketers are sort of approaching things. And so, like, I get it; it's difficult, but I think you sort of have to. Things aren't going to change overnight, and so hopefully, in working with the brand over time, if you're kind of consistent in trying to sell through consistency, then maybe you can sell it through.
Yeah, and whether you're a creator or not, I think there's a ton in here that we talked about for everybody, because it really is. It's if you were consistent and you were there at the first of YouTube, you're probably rocking and rolling, right? If you just stick with it, if you were just able to hold on and keep going, you just got better and you built a giant audience, whether you were really amazingly good or not. Mm-hmm. I think that says a lot to creators that there's still these huge opportunities, and I really appreciate the breakdown of those and having you on, and having the conversation from both the creator kind of side as well as the agency side. Super fun. So
yeah, this is a blast. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always good to jam on that, and I really dig where the TikTok's going. So looking forward to hearing more from that. And where can people get a hold of you other than TikTok?
I would say. So I just relaunched my newsletter. So why don't I direct people to that?
Cool. I'll have the link for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. It's my name for everything. If you want, I'm on all the platforms, but BrendanGahan.com, BrendanGahan. And I've been sending out weekly emails again. So I'm starting to kind of get that back up and running.
Well, I dig it, man. Thanks so much for giving us the time. And thanks for being with us. Hopefully you come back sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, take it easy. And everybody, see you all next time on the Pop Marketing Podcast.